The first school of thought we'll look at is evolutionism. The work of Charles Darwin played an important influence on the early work of anthropologists such as Sir Edward Taylor and Sir James Frazer in England, and Lewis Henry Morgan in the United States. These early anthropologists developed a model of cultural evolution where all cultures evolved from lower to higher forms of society over time. According to Sir Edward Taylor, society's evolution is unidirectional and passes through different stages, from a less complex state to a more complex state, such as found in city-states or empires. Major criticism of this school of thought centers around it being ethnocentric in nature, assuming certain cultures being less advanced than others. Ethnocentrism is basically judging other cultures by the standards of one's own culture rather than by the standards of other cultures, treating one's own culture as the way of life and other cultures being inferior. Another early school of theoretical thought is diffusionism. Along with evolutionism, early anthropologists held the notion that people were inherently uninventive and preferred to borrow the inventions of other cultures versus developing their own ideas. Diffusionism centers around the notion that the spread of ideas, customs, and practices migrate from a common source, spreading from one group of people to another, and from one geographical location to another location. For example, William Perry and Grafton Smith believed that every aspect of civilization originated from Egypt and spread to all parts of the world. However, German diffusionists took a different take on diffusionism. They believe there was not one center or origin for culture, but several cultural centers from which cultural diffusion occurred. Again, a criticism of diffusionism is that it has ethnocentric underpinnings, where one culture is perceived as being better or more advanced than another. A second criticism is that some societies do not show any signs of the culture of origin for the ideas within those societies. And a third criticism is that societies that adjoin one another can be observed without exchanging cultural traits. It is possible for the same ideas to develop independently in different cultures around the world. Take, for example, the pyramid in Guatemala and the pyramid in Cambodia. The pyramid in Guatemala is the jaguar temple of the Mayan people, built around the 8th century. The pyramid in Cambodia is a Hindu pyramid built around the 10th century. They appear similar and look like they would have shared their ideas with each other. However, both these structures developed independently from each other. However, it is known that the Romans did culturally appropriate from the Greeks. Franz Boas, considered one of the founding fathers of modern anthropology, was critical of these early schools of thought, explaining the spread of culture and cultural development. Studying the Inuit people, he came to realize that each culture has its own unique development and trajectory, and recognized the validity of each culture in its own right. Based on this, he introduced the concept of cultural relativism or historical particularism as a response to cultural evolution and diffusionism. He believed that anthropologists cannot compare two cultures because each culture has its own internal rules that must be accepted. Therefore, a culture cannot be judged by the standards of another. Additionally, Franz Boas emphasized the importance of fieldwork. A famous student of his is Margaret Mead, who studied how children rearing shapes personality and gender roles and is considered one of the earliest public anthropologists who applied anthropology to bring about positive social change. Functionalist theory is a school of thought that every aspect of culture, every belief, action, or relationship within a cultural framework or system functions to meet the needs of the individuals of that culture or society. Emphasis is placed on the importance of the interdependentness among all things within a social system to ensure its continuance or survival. A key figure in the functionalist school of thought is Bronislaw Malinowski. While he rejected cultural evolutionism, he differed from Boas by believing societies could be objectively measured and compared. Malinowski applied his theory to his work in the Trobriand Islands in the South Pacific. He observed the trade and exchange of jewelry among members of the Trobriand Islands, linking distinct individuals within the culture in what he called the cooler ring. The jewelry was not valuable and was not part of an economic trade, but helped to reinforce the status of the cooler traders, allowing them to trade food and everyday objects and maintain peaceful relationships among the islands. Therefore, the ceremonial exchange of the jewelry had a very economic and social and political function within the whole society. Another school of thought in explaining culture comes from Claude Levi Strauss, who postulated that the best way to understand a culture is to collect its myths and stories in order to analyze their underlying themes. This led to the development of symbolic anthropology, the study of culture as a system of meanings. Further, those who follow structuralism considered it as a way to investigate the basic units or elements culture is made of and analyze these elements within the larger context of the entire culture or larger structures they are a part of in building up a society. After World War II, evolutionism had a sort of resurgence. However, this time the application of analyzing culture change did not focus on a unilateral trajectory of change, but considered factors such as how energy and technology influence and shape cultural change and development. The leading scholar in this school of thought is Leslie White. In addition to Leslie White, Julian Stewart theorized that social systems are determined by the environmental resources available. Therefore, the local environment and ecology influence cultural development.